everyone, welcome to another episode of Tea Time with Tommy, NORBZ, and me, Brittany, for this episode. So today we're shaking things up a little bit. It's kind of sort of like meta, sort of like Inception, but we have fellow wrestling podcaster Jonah on the episode. So it's podcasters interviewing another podcaster. So a little bit meta there. So Jonah, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience and listeners, like who you are, what you do, and such.
Of course, yeah. Well, thank you for the introduction, Brittany and Tommy and NORBZ alike. I'm very happy to be here. I'm Jonah, and I host Rewind, Recap, Relive, which is, as Brittany said, a fellow wrestling podcast. I have a bit of a spin on my concept where I take a legend or a veteran in the business and I pair them up with a rising star. Started it about a year ago. We're coming up on that 1 year, figuring out what to do. A lot of pressure, but we've had Hall of Famers, legends, rising stars on the independent scene alike, all on, and it's been a lot of giveaways too, a lot of fun moments. It's crazy for me being a fan all my life doing it, so being able to just even sit with these people for like an hour, it's been a crazy experience. But it's fun, and doing it has allowed me to meet people like Tommy and you guys as well as the whole wrestling podcast community, which is bigger than I expected. I think COVID had a help with that too. Everyone who's a wrestling fan just started a podcast, but it's a lot of nice people and it's been a lot of fun doing it. We release our episodes on YouTube if you want to check it out. Rewind, Recap, Relive. And that's pretty much the gist of what I do. Yeah.
That's cool. Tell us a little bit more about the crazy experience you have. Like, when did you start this podcast and how are you getting these big names on here as well?
Well, I started it I started it last June, actually. I released it on my birthday. My birthday is coming up June 25th. So that's a year doing this. My first guest was Buff Bagwell and a personal friend, actually, who's a professional wrestler on the independent scene named Corey Cooper. So that was the very first episode. Thought I'd go with someone I knew, test the concept out, and it worked. So I was very happy with that. And I was getting good feedback from some of the early people I met in the podcasting community that'd never seen something like it before. And I don't think there's anything like it even now. Like, it's kind of more like, if you want to envision, it's like a round table. Like, I know WWE does those table of threes with, people who have something in common on the network or on Peacock, I guess now. But it's similar to that, like a round table. They share some experience. We usually hear a lot of advice given from the veteran to the rising star. To get some of these big names, I mean, it's a hunt. Like, anyone could pull off like 20 and anyone could probably pull off even like 30 or something, but I'm on my way right now to 50. And there's people out there like the bigger channels who have had hundreds, but it's a little, it gets challenging as the pool starts like drying out, I guess you would say, right? Like they become pretty challenging to find, but I managed to do it. And I know a lot of my fellow podcasters, a lot of reaching out and a lot of emails and a lot of unanswered emails, more unanswered than answered. But when you get that one, it boosts your self-esteem for sure. It boosts your confidence level. But yeah, it's been some crazy experiences I've had. Probably the craziest one I had was I got to interview the great Khali on my show. And I would call Khali, I say a lot, like a guilty pleasure. I know he's not everyone's cup of tea, to put the show in there, and not everyone's cup of tea in the ring, but I loved interviewing great Khali, and that was I had to wake up at like 4 a.m. for that time difference, but yeah, so that was one of those moments for me.
Well, I think you just answered one of my questions I was going to ask you there, Jonah. Now I'm stuck. I don't know what to do.
Which one? What were you going to ask?
But I'll still ask anyways. Your favorite interviews. So you already said the great Khali. So if you can name us like 3 other names that you thought were your favorite interviews of all time. If you can think of the other 3.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's like, I was actually thinking as I was leading up to the 1 year because I've done, once a month, every month I come out with 4 interviews once a week. So sometimes 5 depending, but I was thinking of doing like a lead up and people voting for their favorite, but it might sound corny, but I don't want to really put anyone above anyone else in that realm. Like, there's ones that I had fun doing, like a big moment for me. This wasn't like the typical interview. This was more just like a 2-minute call, but I was able to get edge. That of course was like a little fan experience thing, but just for me being a fan all these years, sitting down just for 2 minutes with edge was amazing. And being like, we all call ourselves interviewers. We're just, we set up the camera and we set up the mic. I mean, there's people who've been doing this for 10 and 20 years, but just having that, how do I put this? Like, instead of just being a fan and going up to Edge and saying like, oh my God, I respect your work, actually having a show and a platform to produce that, and like having that confidence that like I could put this out to a fan base was really cool for me to sit down with Edge with that new kind of dynamic. But in terms of like people I've really enjoyed like their work, I loved, let's see, the entire Chicago wrestling scene. At one point I went on like, I went on this one streak of just getting people from around CSW, Chicago Style Wrestling. And it was kind of like almost networking. I get one person on, they say, oh, my friend would love to do something like this. These are like the rising stars. And I think I had like 8 people on from that one promotion in like surrounding areas. And they are such a talented group of people, just like the New Jersey crowd as well. I've had a few on. Tony Cheney with Raven was one of my personal favorite episodes. To say I had a lot of fun with that one. Raven was a guy who really latched onto that concept, and I think that was like my 3rd one ever. I was lucky enough, had the honor to have the late great New Jack on a year ago. That was like, I think my 2nd, maybe even 4th, somewhere around there, my first 5 episodes. So yeah, some of those extreme guys, I've noticed a lot of the ECW guys work really well with the concept, and I don't know if that's just a trend or coincidence or what, but it's really funny. I think they're very humble guys, a lot of those ECW OGs.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that with us, Jonah.
Yeah, of course.
That is excellent. Yeah, you've interviewed so many familiar names, which is incredible. Even legends from in major promotions. Out of all the interviews that you've ever done, I'm sure there's like some interesting ones that you've interviewed. So if you can narrow it down again, who would be your most memorable, interesting interview that you've ever done with any of the wrestlers that you've interviewed?
Yeah, of course. Thanks for the question, NORBZ. I'm gonna go. I love that name, by the way, NORBZ. Is that a nickname, or is that?
Yeah, it's short for Norbert. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Awesome.
All right.
The short form of my name. Yeah.
I love it. Well, for me, I have to say, I would have to circle back to Great Khali being my most interesting one, because there were so many like variables. I wasn't sure if we'd be able to like just communicate. So I had a translator actually in the Zoom call who we ended up not needing because Great Khali spoke perfect English, and that was just probably seeing him on TV all those years with Ranjan Singh, I was like, oh, I'm going to need my own Ranjan Singh, but I ended up not needing one. And Khali it was great. It was a cool experience. The rising star on for that, Bronco Braxton, is a great friend of the show now. He's been on, he was on, with Great Khali there, and he had to wake up, I think it was about 5 a.m., 4 or 5 a.m. He had to wake up for that, like his time, because he was an hour behind me, and I was just so appreciative. I was like, this is incredible. And, sometimes with this concept, one thing I will say that I'm sure the audience who's watched it and even the people who've been on have noticed is sometimes it's like more of a roundtable discussion. I always tell the people before they come on, please feel free to interrupt me, because like people aren't coming to see me. I facilitate these and stuff, but people are really coming to see the names I get on. So I love it when I see that conversation between the rising star and the veteran. Like when I see that organic conversation, they're actually enjoying it for that hour. That is really cool to me. That makes me realize the concept working well. Other times it's more of like a back and forth with me asking questions, more career specific ones. And I try to facilitate that, but sometimes it just doesn't always work out. And that's okay, because then that just turns into a cool interview, nonetheless, it may be missing that, like I said, organic combination, but I love it either way. Either way it falls, either way the cookie crumbles, I enjoy it. But I gotta say, the Great Khali one, he woke up that rising star at around 4 or 5 a.m. Very appreciative for that. I woke up myself, I think the same time we got in the Zoom call. I think a light bulb burst on my set that morning. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. The translator did not have to be used, though. That's the thing that I feel like nobody could know, because I cut him out of it anyway. So you wouldn't know that unless it came directly from my mouth. So there's a tidbit for that. But that was an interesting experience, to say the least.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit more about like your show and the style of it. You said it's very much a round table, and of course you have these big names on here, and of course they've probably been like interviewed I don't know how many times throughout the career. What is something different that you try to do in your show that's sort of a different experience than like all the other interviews that they have done or other podcasts they've been on? Yeah,
that's a really great question, Brittany. Yeah, because I was thinking myself, you know, as you were asking that, I'm saying like, yeah, there is something different because I've heard before, like fellow podcasters have said, like, for example, let's say a podcaster who I'm very good friends with, that 90s wrestling podcast, and he's doing great for himself right now. You should definitely check him out. Cheap plug there. But that 90s wrestling podcast, James and I will sometimes get the same guest, maybe like a week or 2 weeks apart. And we definitely used to, or maybe months apart, whatever it is. Sometimes we'll have like overlapping ones. And if an interview on James' channel and an interview on my channel are like two entirely different things. James has his own style, which is very unique to him. And then my style is, I would like to say it's something like you've never seen them in before, unless they film like a seminar or something at a training school. That's what it would be akin to. It's like, you know, they're giving advice. I ask a lot of questions about how they became a wrestler, like training questions that my goal is really for the rising star to walk away with a piece of knowledge or advice that they didn't have before that. And the experience itself is really cool. Like I just had somebody on, Hellman Rosecrown, who was on with Rene Dupree, that's coming out tomorrow or whenever this is going to be released, Thursday. But he was just really thrilled to be in the room with Rene. Like he was excited for that, and as was I. But I think he also got some good advice on, like, we talked about things like promos, things about in-ring style. And in all these interviews, like in that Tony Cheney Raven one, Tony Cheney, he was using the delivery boy, was his delivery boy Tony Cheney. And he asked Raven, and everyone who knows wrestling knows Raven is like a mastermind of character development, right? Like he's always just on top of his game, whether it be promos or creative. Like I said, he's always there. And he was giving like specific pointers, like instead of like shoot questions, like what was ECW backstage locker room like? Raven was like, you should do this with your character and that with your character. And I think it's so cool to see these wrestlers who you see on screen all the time portraying themselves, kind of giving that advice and really what made them successful, taking a bit of that and trying to put it into like the next generation of stars. And that's the biggest difference in my show with like any other shoot interview show.
Wow. Amazing. Jonah, I got to ask you, is there a story angle that you're really interested in right now, like WB, AEW, Impact Wrestling? Is there like any story angles that you're currently interested in watching?
Let's definitely talk wrestling. I like, I think it's not the big, so what I'm most invested in right now is definitely Roman Reigns. I think he's the strongest, most believable character in wrestling right now that we've had in a while. That's my opinion. I know a lot of opinions float in the world of wrestling, so I'm putting mine out there. But yeah, when I watch SmackDown, I really believe everything Roman Reigns does. I dislike things about him, which I find hard sometimes about a heel wrestler. You know, these days you usually like the heels and don't like the faces, because the faces may, you know, be shoved down your throat. The heels may just be a little more organic. But I personally don't like some stuff Reigns does, and I find me actually getting that that feeling that, what's the word, Tommy? What am I looking for there? You know, that like I suspend my belief a little bit with Roman Reigns more than I do any other. Yeah, he's very very convincing. And so that's number one for me. I also really like RK Bro, I gotta say. And by my two answers, you could probably tell I'm more WWE than AEW, but I do like AEW. I have the passion for pro wrestling, for any pro wrestling, but I'd say my main interest right now, especially all of us have, like, it seems like there's more wrestling than ever, right? So when you have to choose what you want to watch, for me, it's WWE, and then I'll check out AEW highlights and stuff. So I'm probably not as well-versed or knowledgeable to give my opinion on which one I like more, but I like what AEW is doing. But I really love Roman Reigns and RK Bro. Those are my two in WWE right now.
Oh, you might have.
What about you?
You might have problems with NORBZ. NORBZ is an AEW fan.
With no,
you guys are gonna go in the ring now.
I'm more of the AEW guy. I mean, like I've watched it since the inception of it.
Right.
It's just totally different. I mean, it caters to a different audience. The demographics they cater more is 18 to 49, and the mature audience really enjoy it very much. And the matches and
you calling me immature? No, I'm just kidding.
No.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I mean, I still follow a little bit of WWE, especially NXT.
Right.
NXT. Yeah, and Samoa Joe just came back to
incredible.
to NXT.
Shocked me.
Yeah, it did. So I think WWE still has a good product going forward, especially with NXT and with the things that they're going on right now. Let's just hope that they keep it going. I mean, SummerSlam is going to be very exciting.
I agree with you. I think SummerSlam is going to be a big one. I got to ask you though, Norbs, being the resident AEW fan, do you agree that Roman Reigns, aside from NXT, because they still don't technically consider that a third brand, even though we all know it is, but looking at Raw and SmackDown, do you think Roman is the number one thing going?
I believe so. Because he has Paul Heyman behind him.
Right.
The Usos around him as well. His character has really evolved from being in a faction with the Shield into a larger than life character as the tribal chief. I think that he's really one of the anchors of the company right now.
Right.
And with SmackDown being on Fox, they're very interested in him highly. So let's just hope that he gets more interesting feuds going forward, and just keep on doing what he's doing best, being the champion there on SmackDown. And let's hope that there are other characters to be built out there. So somewhere down the road that he's gonna face those guys for a title shot, hopefully. So let's just keep it going.
I'm with you. And just to bounce off you, Norb, real fast there, or Norb, sorry. I loved Double or Nothing. Double or Nothing was fantastic. To get more into your neck of the woods, it was a phenomenal pay-per-view. And like I said, I feel like when I want to get into a company, I watch the pay-per-view, and I know that's like unfair because obviously they're going like harder on the pay-per-view, but it got me very interested, more so than I was in AEW. Did Double or Nothing this past one, so great product as well. Yeah.
Britt's into Netflix, Jonah.
Oh yeah. Sorry, Brittany. I don't mean. I was just in a very heated debate with Norbs, But...
No, it's okay. Honestly, you can go on.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, there was going to be a brawl going on with Norbs and Jonah here.
Stadium Stampede, maybe.
Stadium Stampede.
Double or Nothing. Part 5.
Yeah. For sure.
So, Brittany, which one are you into? Out of curiosity, WWE or AEW?
Oh, fun fact. I am a wrestling moderator, but I don't watch much wrestling.
Oh,
so I
okay.
get all of my knowledge from Tommy and Norbs here.
This is where you should have lied, Britt.
I saw Tommy's face. Tommy, did you not know that? That seemed like a shock.
She does watch a little bit, Joel. Like she catches a little bit.
Yeah.
No, I think
I get that. Yeah.
No, I think like pre-pandemic, a couple years ago, like we're all from Toronto, and then me, Norbs, and Tommy went to SummerSlam. That happened here.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we interviewed. Who did we interview, Tommy?
R-Truth, Carmella, got Samoa Joe.
Really?
Yeah, the best was Braun. Braun was the best one, but yeah, he was a real great guy. But yeah, Big E was funny. Big E felt our
You interviewed these people at like Access or something?
Oh, it was like a media event in Toronto. So Britt.
Wow, and you guys got into that? Yeah. That's so cool.
Norbs couldn't join us, but hey, when we get to your level, Jonah, that's when Norbs can join us.
Norbs chose not to join you guys. That's what happened there. He was at an AEW event.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was in discussion with Cody Rhodes to establishing the company. Yeah.
Exactly.
Cody and Jericho.
It was in the works then. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, I gotta ask you, other than interviewing major professional wrestlers and independent ones, what other job in wrestling that really interests you? It could be like a director, it could be an announcer, or like somebody from the gorilla position. Like, what other position in wrestling would you be interested in?
Oh, if I could do something, like I would love to look into producing. I just heard John Cena and Chris Van Vliet, like they just did like a little thing. I don't know if you guys saw, but he was talking about like something like how WWE is able to just, or maybe it was just wrestling in general, but how they're able to turn it into like such a spectacle so quick, and it pays off because the audience, as you know, as an audience member, you're entertained, so that pays off. But that's just like a little mention of it, because I think it's so amazing, like that. I don't think wrestling fans take it for granted, but I think that it can sometimes get lost. Like for instance, one of my favorite parts of Double or Nothing was the set itself. You know what I mean? Like just the set design, like the little things that go into it, the aesthetic. That was one of the things that got me into AEW at first, was like the aesthetic that they were coming out with. It was very like new and like modern. It wasn't so polished, you know? And I think when a lot of people go after WWE, like criticizing it, I think it's that it's become a bit polished. Like I love looking at the stage designs from like, you know, anything before the 2010s, I'd say, like the early 2000s stage design for WWE. So much thought went into it. Maybe like early 2010s too. But things like that really interest me in wrestling, the design and like the aesthetic of it. And I think producing would be cool, although I think that's different from producing. I know that a lot of producers handle certain matches and certain stories and angles. I'd be very interested in that too. Those two parts of wrestling really get me, because you need that type of stuff to create this atmosphere. I think, you know, we've learned that really in the Thunderdome, where they've tried, and I think on some levels they've succeeded. Like look at when the coronavirus first struck and we were in the empty performance center and it was dead silent. I mean, nobody liked that, you know, and I can't even imagine how it felt for the wrestlers competing in that. It's just so weird. It's such a weird feeling. And as a fan watching all these years, seeing utter silence, it was different and not in a good way. But seeing what they've done with the Thunderdome, like I said, like they've tried, and on some fronts, like compared to that, they've succeeded, but still it's like it's missing that quality of like, you know, city to city. Oh, where are they tonight? It's like, oh, they're in Texas, they're in Florida, they're here, they're there. It's like, I think those are things we might have taken for granted before COVID, and now we're really noticing like, oh man, like when WWE announced they're going back on the road, I was so excited. AEW did the same thing, and I was like, hell yeah, like we need that wrestling in every city again. We need to see those different crowd members there, see the different stage designs for a pay-per-view in this. So those, yeah, I kind of veered off from the question a little bit, but I'd say those areas of like the design and like the producing of the actual event really interest me.
Yeah, it's so interesting with wrestling compared to any other sport, because with wrestling is more than, you know, two people in a ring together kind of like battling out. Yeah. It's like you said, this whole stage storyline that has to be designed as well. And it's like who's gonna face who, like what are these what are these like people's storylines gonna turn out as, and then like you said, the spectacle of the stage production too, because it's giving people a different show each time and a new experience. Yeah, exactly.
And I don't know if you guys are into like other sports. Myself, I'm not too much into other things other than wrestling. Other things definitely, but not other sports. What about you? You guys big sport people? Tommy or NORBZ or Brittany?
Baseball.
Starting to go baseball for NORBZ. I'm going to.
As per my background here.
Oh yeah, exactly. What'd you say, Tommy?
MMA and boxing and
nice.
Basketball.
Okay.
I like all sports really.
One thing for me. Well, that's nice. Well, one thing for me growing up was like seeing the difference of like watching a baseball game or like a basketball game and like seeing the setup that they do. And, you know, in no way am I criticizing that in a negative way, but like I just look at the difference, you know, and of course it's for a certain audience. Like we're wrestling fans, somebody's a basketball fan and not a wrestling fan would obviously not see it this way, but just look at, like Brittany was saying, like the spectacle and the fireworks and the stage and the display, and maybe a bit too much LED at times, but still nonetheless, like all that stuff for wrestling. And then you got like basketball. It's just different feelings, but I personally, I go with wrestling every time. It's like, it's suspending that belief for like 3 hours, you know, watching a pay-per-view, a few hours watching wrestling. It all goes into that same element of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Because with other sports, you have the same court or same field, just different teams or different players.
I just think it's so creative. Yeah, there's nothing like it to me. I guess that's what I'm getting as. It's so unique, you know, and that's what draws me into it as a fan.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this has been a really great conversation, Jonah. We loved having you here, podcaster to podcaster. So before we wrap everything up, how can people check you out and your podcast?
Well, yeah, you could check me out at Rewind, Recap, Relive on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook. We started the new Facebook group up, and on Twitter at R3Jonah. And you can see all of our interviews on YouTube, Rewind, Recap, Relive. We've got them in playlists. We've got them organized for you, a bunch of clips. We've got weekly giveaways. We're still going strong until there's no more wrestlers left to interview. So we'll be going for a while. We're not on any podcasting platforms, so we're funneling you all into our YouTube for now. And then we'll branch out. But find us on YouTube. I promise you'll at least find one interview that you like on there. We've got 46 up as of tomorrow. So there's something there for everybody. But thank you guys so much for having me. Really, this was awesome. Really, Brittany, NORBZ, Tommy, everyone should check you guys out. I'm going to blast this all over the place. But this has been like a real pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jonah. Thank you, guys.
This is Jonah from Rewind, Recap, Relive, and you're watching Tea Time with Tommy. Please subscribe below and stay tuned for more episodes of Tea Time with Tommy.
Hey everyone, it's Brittany from Tea Time with Tommy, and don't forget to catch Tea Time with Tommy and click the subscribe button on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Spotify. And if you don't click the subscribe button, Tommy will be a very, very, very cranky old man. So let's not have that. So make sure you click the like and subscribe button.